Hi everybody, welcome to Chapter 11. We're going to be talking about customer relationship development today, and also kind of how to retain customers in different market areas. I think we're going to have two chapters back to back. One is pretty important, which I think is this one, and then the next chapter, it's kind of more semantic than important, because how you develop a website is basically, I think that's industry specific. I think there are some elements you need to have, but I don't think that's something that you really want to overly focus on. This chapter is important because we're going to talk about kind of the notion of why developing relationships with customers is important, why it matters in an era where we're moving to online business, and more importantly, why making sure that people are happy and satisfied will help increase your business. So I think this is an important chapter. This is one that I would definitely focus on. I would read the textbook and I would look at some of the information they provide as well. So we ask you the question, what's more important, customer acquisition or customer retention? The challenge with this right now in industry is that customer retention matters a lot more than acquisition, because once you have somebody, you want to keep them coming back to you. If you're selling services, that's normally easier. If you have a good service, people will come back to you. If you're selling products or goods, that's really not the case, because you can always find it cheaper and people are going to substitute satisfaction versus cost. So it really depends on the industry that you're in and the service or product that you provide. But I would argue right now, retention is more important. So we know that the average company loses half of its customers every 5 years. That's true. That's why you have to acquire new customers as well while you're retaining the ones that you have. If you can find a way to keep the customers happy, but also provide them with something new, I think that's important. Notice that our book discusses that 85% of customers who leave an industry are satisfied. They just went somewhere else, probably for better value, better price. Customers who are extremely satisfied are more than likely to repurchase versus people that are satisfied. So you want to make sure that they have a positive experience. And the dissatisfied customer in today's era is very, very, very important to note, because these are the individuals that will post things online, they'll post things on blogs, and that can really destroy your company's reputation. So please consider that as well. So looking at figure 11.1, and if I'm directing you in the textbook to this is on page 288. I want you to see basically what the acquisition cost is. The beginning of any company that you're going to start, or you're going to design or develop, or any business you open up, that acquisition cost right here is going to be very, very, very expensive. You're going to have to pay money and offer products, premiums, and services, really where you're going to lose money the first 6 months to be effective. Then, as long as you have referrals and you can keep the business growing, then you're more likely to make more money from having a loyal customer base. And one of the things that our book shows is the fact that in the beginning you're going to have very few referrals, then it's going to continue to grow to the point where referrals are going to almost equal your base spending and your spending growth. So in theory, one of the keys that you need to know is in the beginning you're going to spend a lot of money to acquire customers. Then through referrals and growing and building your business, that's how you're going to make, and that's how you're going to increase your value. So customer relationship management or customer relationship marketing, I think it's really a combination of both. You have to manage the people that you have currently interested in your business. You have to worry about strategic processes, organizational processes, and operational processes. But there's also a marketing segment to it as well, because you want to advertise to people, you want them to buy into your product and establish brand loyalty, and you want them to keep coming back as well. So what are we going to focus on? You're going to focus on the strategy, how you plan to incorporate your marketing plan to people, what you intend to do, who you intend to target. We've been talking about that pretty much the entire class. The operations aspect of it, I would argue, is slightly more important, because this is where you're determining your costs Are you going to hire an outside person to handle this? Are you going to be personally involved in it? And we've already talked about the advantages and disadvantages of both of these. And then the analytics is really your data analysis. Is what you're spending money on and spending time on actually paying off? If it doesn't pay off, then what you're doing pretty much means nothing. So you need to make sure that the payoff is there in that, in that you're actually getting something out of what you're investing in. So traditional mass media marketers find this notion of CRM to be very difficult because their idea is you can establish likability with an industry, profitability with an industry, and you're not as worried about it because people are going to keep coming back anyway. So focusing on the customer, this is presented in the book on page 290. One of the things that I want to stress, and the textbook really doesn't stress this, is the fact that for all of you, if you're interested in small business ownership, which a lot of you have indicated, you really have to be focused on customer-oriented marketing. If you're going for a large-scale industry, not as much is the case. But for a smaller business, what you do is really about retention of customers and relationships. So please try to keep that in mind. So we give you the chair focus of CRM that you've probably seen in any marketing classes that you've taken before. It's the notion that customer service marketing and how the sales force works together kind of forms your base and your foundation of your marketing strategy for your business. Like I said, I'm guessing if you've had a marketing class, you've probably seen this diagram or a similar diagram before. So what can you do? What are different strategies that are effective and different strategies that work? One of the problems with direct mail that you're going to see is that there's a growing cost to send things out. You're looking at, essentially almost 50 cents per piece of mail that you send out to customers, where email is virtually inexpensive, free. All that you're basically paying for is the time of somebody to send out the emails. But that can help you generate leads and help you try to acquire new customers and also to retain customers that you need as well. Telemarketing is good, but you want to do that after you already get somebody to buy into your company or to your organization. Calling somebody cold with the do not call list, that's something that you really can't do now, and it's probably going to lower your brand's value instead of helping it. So try to keep these in mind, that you kind of start with the email base or start with the direct mail base. Once somebody says, yes, I'm interested, then you follow up with phone calls or personal emails back to them. So there's a table in the book on page 292 that goes over different software that you can use to support relationships. You certainly can visit and view this on your own. So we note kind of the data drives every step. This is available on your book on page 293. It's the notion that you're identifying, you're differentiating, you're interacting, and then you're customizing. So this is kind of the analytic phase that I spoke about a few slides ago. You're identifying the strategies based off of the analytics. Then you're differentiating and you're targeting maybe one different demographic or another demographic with a different kind of campaign. You're interacting directly with your customers, and then you customize your responses to them. So basically using that analytic model, to design and develop everything. So the book talks about the International Speedway campaign, kind of the idea of them using a very, very, very large database to see what the ticket purchaser did, what their opinions were, what they found in different tracks was more relevant to them. It's an interesting read, but this is also something that a bigger and a larger industry obviously can use. You're looking at a company that had 10 million user records, which you're not going to find in most of the businesses you're interested in starting, developing, or working for. So another figure in the book, there's a lot in our text. There's a lot from the textbook that are more graphically oriented. This particular chapter, page 294, goes over kind of the cycle in order to get people to stay with you and their customer life cycle. The big key is trying to find the best people that are most interested in your product. get a response from them, get them to come back. If they're possibly going to go away, offer them something else, and then target lapsed customers and donors to try to win them back. When I see this model, one of the things that I think about is the approach that SiriusXM uses for the radio. If you have a SiriusXM subscription and you're paying full price for it, that's something that I would strongly encourage you to let it lapse for about a week or two. SiriusXM will do a 5-month promotional price for about $40, and they'll do it pretty much every 5 months if you cancel or you threaten to not renew the plan that you have. So that gets them a repeat purchase, but if you do actually let your product lapse and there's attrition, they'll call you back within a week or two to get you to renew at the more affordable price. So keep that in mind. So the example in the book is something that a lot of you probably remember. The idea of becoming an M&M character. You can customize your own M&M character. I remember when South Park was switching to having their show almost completely streamed online on Comedy Central. They gave you the option to create your own South Park character. That also increased brand recognition and brand loyalty as well. The difference with that versus M&M, you could actually take the M&M one and you could customize colors of M&Ms. Obviously, it was a little more expensive, and you could take it and you could design it and develop it into different merchandise as well. But allowing personalization is a big thing with businesses. So this is available on page 296. I think this is digging a little too in depth. You're welcome to look at it. It's kind of showing you the difference between data mining and just data-driven decision making. You're welcome to look at this on your own. I'm not going to hold anything on the test on this. This is a little much for what I would envision this class being. So developing relationships are important. I realize that they're showing the ASPCA here. The cynic side of me remembers, though, that even though they're talking about relationships, the ASPCA is a nonprofit. Nonprofits thrive and they exist on relationships. So, are you having a dependent relationship with them? Well, yeah, but my guess is if you're visiting the ASPCA in the first place, you care about animals, so they can try a relationship and they can try, to sort of appeal to your heartstrings versus, a company like Best Buy or McDonald's. They're not going to be able to do that as well as a nonprofit organization will. So just my thoughts on that. It might be a little cynical, but it's really true in our business environment. So try to find ways to make the appeal your best. Like your marketing plan has to be your best. They showed they basically showed how people respond and how they renewed, and I found this a little interesting because they had a split between dog and cat supporters, but when they gave them a cat-only message or a dog-only message, they were more likely to respond in order to renew their membership. So little simple personalization can do a lot for some of you. So developing profiles or models, once again, I think you're seeing that almost everything we're talking about in this chapter is analytic. But that's the idea of knowing who your customer is and personalizing content on the website or emails to them and seeing if it works and it gets them to come back. So how do you get data from anonymous users and how do you communicate to obtain more data? A lot of that really depends on the organizations and the features that you partner with. And a lot of it depends on your web traffic as well. And we'll talk a little bit about that in some of the later chapters. So one of the other examples on the book, they really spoke about how Cisco needed to reactivate thousands of accounts. They found different levels of people, and they tried their best to provide you with a retention rate, and found people responded to different things. Some people would say update your profile to stay current. Some would say get a white paper by updating your profile. Some would say get a Starbucks gift card by updating your profile. Depending on the different level that you were at, that depend on the conversion rate. And this is basically just showing you it was an easy way to personalize and customize a marketing strategy. So they sent a similar email to everybody, but they offered different types of incentives throughout the entire system. So what do you need to do in order to personalize? It has to be done in a way that gives you, that's fair based off of things that they can actually measure and calculate. When they say rules-based, I really don't like that. I really don't like that approach. I would rather you know this more is this is providing your address or your zip code or something like that, because then they can market around certain types of industries that are local, other businesses that you might be interested in. Basically, you give them some information, and then they provide you with something back based on your geographic location. So they call it rules-based. I don't necessarily like that, but that's the way that our textbook defines it. In a user-controlled environment, the user provides information through a registration form. The user's normally given a checkbox at the end that says, if you would like to receive more offers, please click here. When they do, then they're given more offers and they get more information back from the user. In an information-driven model, this is normally going to be very, very, very costly to you. Certainly those of you that are trying to start a business from scratch, you're not going to have the startup capital in order to do this. But this is kind of using complex web analytics in order for them to know where the traffic is coming from, gathering data based off of your browsing preferences. This kind of stuff costs a lot of money to do, so it might not be something you directly consider. So we give you an example of another loyalty program. This is Tesco. This is one of the largest food retailers in European markets. When I was over in Istanbul and when I was over in France, Tesco was kind of their equivalent to our Giant Eagle or Giant chain that we have. They had a similar loyalty program. They used metrics. They had coupons that came back directly. But one of their issues that they had was the targeted offers and targeted promotions tended to change over time, and that had some issues when they had some metrics that were involved in it. One of the other things that I want to mention that I found interesting in kind of looking up some stuff about Tesco was the fact that they relied more on this card and using this for analytics, and they didn't rely on advertising. They didn't even have an official Facebook page until 2011, and it took time for them to add that environment into it and kind of link that to the card and provide value on there. But their notion was this idea of, just like a Giant Eagle Advantage card or a Shop and Save card. People go to the grocery store, you swipe the card, they know your buying preferences, and they kind of go for there and target to your strategies. So we note how important apps and social networking use are. This is available on page 307. This is certainly something that you can note. I think it's interesting to show that more people are spending time on mobile apps than they are on the internet now. So that's certainly going to change the way that individuals market in the future. And note that this is a statistic from 2011. We're 4 years later. I would probably argue that more time consumption is available on the application-based software now than it is on the internet. So trying to gather data on Facebook, if you have permission on the Facebook custom tab, that will let you capture your social media profile. So they know whether or not you're single, they know whether or not you have children, they know whether or not you are employed with a bachelor's degree, master's degree, that sort of thing. And this can help you add additional data in terms of your marketing strategy as well. So it's another consideration, but it's something that you have to obviously obtain permission in order to do. So we talk about Best Buy's we talk about Best Buy's experience, it still exists more than, it still exists more than a lot of other companies, but what I want you to focus on, it's kind